How's your husband?
He's better, but still sounds bad. That's really cool.
Coughing and that, yeah.
He went ahead and went to lunch today with his wife.
I agree.
He hasn't felt good.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a bad time.
No, it's not pride. So, but good try.
He makes it sound like it's
Too long, I had to take a picture.
It's not peace. After we say a prayer, I'll give you a hint. Randy, would you lead us in a prayer, please?
Lord, we come to you again this day. Thank you for all the blessings in this life and the challenges and the answers that you give us. And we just ask you to be with us and guide us in those challenges and the answers. Lord, just help us all learn more about you, and not only about who you are, but how to share your word with others and let other people know who you are. Lord, we just thank you for the fellowship of friends and family that we have. That's what you do for us this evening.
Amen. All right. Well, you know, the riddle is easier if you work it backwards. So what do dead people take with them to their grave? What was that? Okay. What do misers spend? What do spendthrifts save? Are we sensing the pattern? It's nothing. The answer is nothing.
Absolutely not.
No. So, but I wanted that riddle because of how long it was. Because this morning and tonight, I heard at least one person say, "I'm not reading that thing; it's too long."
Well, I made the comment. I couldn't remember it all because it's too long.
Yeah.
I took a picture of it.
Well, so tonight we're talking about laziness. You know, and it's funny, you know, hey, have we gotten lazier? Yeah. That's one. I was going to say technology.
As an individual or
As a society, not an individual. Individual cases are individual cases, but as a society, have we been geared? Why? How did it happen? Okay, well, that's one, but that's not all. It's like I remember I heard a preacher talk about once of how he's good friends with the local doctor, and he said, you know, this doctor friend was telling him it just drives him nuts of how people who just don't take care of themselves for a vast majority of their life. They come to him and they say, you know, you need to lose weight, you need to watch your blood pressure, you need to watch your diet, just give me a pill. You know, I saw an eye roll. I was waiting. You haven't come across that yet, have you? And, you know, but it's that same society as the technology. It's like the first riddle that I ever put up. Someone in here Googled the answer because we rather be right now instead of think about it. You know, and see, yeah, because that's the point. You know, what's the point of a riddle if you have to look up the answer without putting any thought to it? Well, I'm just going to Google that right now. You know, it's like another topic of discussion we've had in there during the Proverbs class. A teacher friend of mine, it was on an article on Facebook, is using Alexa to give you your kids answers to their homework cheating, or is it using a resource? You know, because apparently some people are trying to make the argument, oh, I'm just using a resource, the same as an encyclopedia, dictionary, or what have you.
But if you look it up in an encyclopedia or what have you, you have to actually read and dig it out instead of some little electronic voice telling you an answer.
Yes.
You have
seventh grade.
You know, I mean, that's the thing, and I agree with you. I love how Peggy Hoskins put it today. We're talking about technology making us lazy, and Peggy was a former principal down in Mexico, and she said when technology gets to the point where it does our thinking for us, instead of just being a tool, it becomes our brain. That's when we're in trouble. And I thought that was very poignant. You know, that was a good way to look at it. It's like if it does all of our thinking for us, then yeah, that's bad.
I'm guilty in that. The map saying anywhere I go, I just hit the maps and called about the ball instead of getting out the thing and plotting my thing.
Yeah.
And where I'm going.
Yeah.
I used to do that years ago. Just do out the map. Okay, I gotta go here. Watch my turn. Now you just
Follow directions.
Now you just follow directions,
take a
which
right.
is great until GPS lies to you.
You haven't updated yourself.
I mean, it's like, oh, I've been lied to by GPS.
The last
I
few years I taught school, when I'd be going over something, I'd have something projected on the board, and I'd say, you really ought to take notes on this.
click.
They all whip out their phones and take a picture of it. The problem is they don't even read those over.
No.
Whereas if they wrote it down, they would at least have to read it that once while they're writing it. So,
Does it surprise anybody that they're starting to come out with studies that say handwritten notes actually help you remember more than even typing your notes? I mean, there is something about, or if you're left-handed,
even
you know.
typing it's better than
Yeah, even type is better, but it's funny. It's
when you actually write it, it sticks in your brain.
yeah, yes.
True story, when I was 7, toward the end of the year, one of the co-teachers is teaching the 7th grade how to write cursive. You should see, it was funny. It was funny. It would take them, they'd write their name. I'm not joking. You just have to see this to believe it. They spent 20 minutes with just one little sentence. And to write their name, it was like it took them, 5 minutes. If they wrote the name 3 times, it would take, and then you had to tell them, and then they didn't know. You had to show what cursive looked like, because we're going back to cursive. And she was telling them, and when she was telling me that she heard the Declaration of Independence, so afraid no one will be able to read it because it's written in
Cursive, yeah.
cursive.
Yeah, so why is laziness so destructive? I mean, what's wrong with doing nothing? It's boring. That's yeah. And if we do nothing, what do we tend to start doing? I don't know. Idle hands. Isn't it interesting that I shared this in the Genesis classes I've taught, but even before the fall of man, God still had it in his mind that man would do something. In the beginning, it was name the animals and take care of the garden. Eve was there to help. I mean, that was the job. That was the goal. So I find it interesting that even in perfect society that God created, man still had something to do. God never intentioned man to do nothing. And yet, we look at the dangerous turn that our society is taking. We let technology take over more and more and more. We let decisions get made for us more and more and more. We just kind of sit back and try to put our life on coast. It's like, when we did that Wally sermon, last month or whatever, I came across an article that some people put out that said that's actually the goal for humanity, to just all of us have our floating chairs and have nothing to worry about, and just grow fat and lose bone mass and just have nothing, just absolutely nothing. They say, yeah, no, what's purpose? I mean, there's no purpose, there's no longing, there's nothing, so.
A few years ago, it's been a number of years ago, my mom was still alive, and we heard somebody talking about how boring, and she said, when I was a kid, I don't remember hearing anyone ever say that, because there was always something to do, and if you did complain that you didn't have anything to do, then your parents would put you to work doing something.
Right.
And she said, that's all you hear now. Oh, it's so boring. It's so boring. And they find no interest in doing things, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, right. Go ahead. They didn't hear you over here. Say that again.
Because they don't have something, a purpose of doing.
Yeah, I mean we've so yeah, I mean that's the thing. Laziness is bad. That's not the goal. Shouldn't be to be able to sit back and do nothing. That shouldn't be the goal. So what should we be goal? Why is laziness dangerous? How do we avoid it? That's what tonight's proverbs are about. Going through this, and it says in for example, Proverbs chapter 10, verse 4 and 5. It says, and again, what this, as we've talked about with parable before, note the pictures that it gives us. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. He who gathers crops in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps during harvest is a disgraceful son. A couple of words that are going to be repeated tonight over and over again is laziness is one, but diligence is going to be another. Diligence. What is diligence? Okay, it's steadfastness, the working. You're doing something. It's more than just busy work, though, isn't it? Yeah. So you're going with a purpose. So yeah. So keep that in mind. So lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Now again, first of all, you agree with this or no? Okay. What's wealth mean though? Are we saying how come everybody in here has worked? How come we aren't all a bunch of Bill Gates in here?
We're all wealthy.
We are. We are, aren't we?
I'm kind of glad I'm not a big.
That's right. And that's that's the thing. It's some people just say that and say wealth, and wealth in this sense means any sort of income. That's the idea. Okay. So lazy hands make for poverty. Diligent hands bring in wealth, or bring in an income, bring in a means of supporting yourself. Sherry and I went and saw Violet Daniels the other day, and she was talking to us about her and her boys, and we were talking, and she was talking about her boys, and she was talking about her life when the boys were little. She used to have to work 3 jobs to bring in ends meet. And so the other day, her son, who lives out in California, was whining a little bit that he had to work 1 full-time job. And she was, and it was, don't come to me with that. It's like, hush your mouth. But that's the thing is the willingness to work. That's also going to be repeated. Now, the image. He who gathers crops in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps during harvest is a disgraceful son. What's going on here? Put your farmer's hats on. What's going on? Oh, that's did you get a sheet? They're all on the sheet. Okay, there's a sheet in the back. But that is Proverbs 10, 4 and 5. But what's the image? How busy is a harvest time? We read a book, a group of us read a book called The Painted House, and it was centered in rural Arkansas during a cotton harvest. And that was the race. The race was you had to get all the cotton in before the rains hit, because once the rains hit, that's going to ruin it. So everything was geared towards you got to get the cotton in the house. There was no times for lollygagging. There was no times for shenanigans. There was no time for naps. There was no time for any of it. 12-hour days, everybody in the house going out, picking cotton 12 hours. If you're lazy, you're wasting time and stuff's not getting done. You're a disgrace to the family. But if you're diligent, if you're gathering the crops, you're prudent. You're good. So that's the idea. Check out this image in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 26. As vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so are sluggards to those who send them. Who has ever had a job in which you had underlings? Randy, you ever have a lazy underling?
All week long I'm in for it like that.
I saw him over here like this. Yeah, I think he knew where I was going. You got some smoke in your eye there? So is anybody in here like me? Like every time you go to a campfire, you're the type of person that regardless of where you sit around the campfire, the smoke follows you? Yes, right? So, you've had smoke in the eyes, right? What does smoke in the eye do? Yeah, it's not fun, right? Okay, now look at what he's saying now. This is the type of person, so are sluggards to those who send them. That irritating, scratchy, can't breathe, can't see, just, That's what it's like to have the lazy underneath you. Again, what are we supposed to be? We're supposed to be blessings. We're supposed to be blessings to the world. We're supposed to be blessings. We're supposed to be, if we're an employee, we're supposed to be a blessing to those who employ us. If we're an employer, we're supposed to be a blessing to those who work for us. We're supposed to be a blessing in every phase of life. But if we're lazy and don't do anything, we're not being a blessing. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 24. Diligent hands will rule, but laziness ends in forced labor. Oh, I heard a uh-huh. Okay, why do you uh-huh?
That's interesting.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah. What is this?
You're gonna work anyway. If you do it on your own initiative, that's a lot better. Whereas if you forced, I think of it like when I was a kid, my dad would say to my brothers and me, "You want to earn a quarter by going out in the yard and doing whatever was needed." And if we said no, he said, "We go out and do it anyway, and now you don't get a quarter." You had your chance to earn the money.
Yeah.
Now you do the work and no money.
I remember I've negotiated with my kids, and and we'll do stuff. It's like, I'll give you $5 to do such and such. I'm like, 10. I'm like, 3. It's like we can play this game. How you doing? So but isn't it, but that's the thing is if we're lazy, chances are we're going to end up working anyway and not working in the positions that we want to. Why? Because if we're lazy, we put ourselves and think long term now. If we're lazy, what happens to us? We run out. Okay, if we run out, what do we need? We need more. So what do we do? What do we have to do? Well, we have work where though? I'm about to say in jobs of our choosing, or in jobs that are less, that we might just have to settle for. I mean, that's
kind of what I'm saying. Diligent hands will rule.
Yeah.
We're going to eventually be the managers and everything else.
Yes. If we are able to work, if we're able to work hard, now again, remember, these are divine possibilities. These are divine possibilities. They're not 100% because there's other things. There's the type of government that you live in. There's the country that you live in. There's the laws and that. All this stuff also plays into this. But generally speaking, if you had the option to do what you wanted to, who has the more options for job choices? The ones who've prepared themselves. Right. Yeah. If you can broaden your skill set, that's what I try to tell my kids. The bigger your personal toolbox or tool belt of your skills, the better off you can be, because you're going to be in demand in some way, some form, of whatever skill you have.
Sometimes it's being in demand, but sometimes it's doing things for yourself instead of having to pay someone else to do it.
That's true too.
It could be both.
Yes. When's the last time Phil hired a handyman? Or Randy, when was the last time a handyman came into your house? Yeah, yes, Will.
I help Joanna around the house. She pays me to, when I help her, she do the yard work.
All right. Look at this. Proverbs 13, verse 4. Sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. Okay, I see some head shaking. Yes. Why do you agree with this? What is this saying? Have you ever... Have you ever met a lazy, picky person? That's a bad combination. But it's the idea they don't want to do anything, but they also don't want to settle for anything either. They think they have a say. And they have desire. This another running theme through these is going to be desire. They're going to have a desire. Everybody wants something. Everybody has an appetite for something. But what happens if we have an appetite for something, but we're too lazy to go out and get it? We never have it. I have waged a lifelong battle after getting out of high school with my weight. The last thing I need to do is go to a buffet. But how many times, if I could just wake up every morning and just say, I'm going to lose weight, 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 but make absolutely no change, add no activity, change my routine, and no way that can change this, am I ever going to meet a goal? No. So the sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desire of the diligent. Now, the diligent, they have desires too. They have appetites too. But the difference between the diligent and the lazy person is that the diligent person will go after it. And they will track it down and it will become fully satisfied. Hey, this works in the church. You know how many Christians I've met that have come to me and said, I want to be in a very pathetically run, do-nothing church. I'll give you a hint. It's zero. Nobody ever says that. People want to be involved with a lively, vibrant, active, empowered, living for the Lord type church. Awesome. That's great. But here's the question. How many of us want to do the work to make a church go from where it is to become that? Oh, now that number dwindles a bit. We want the end result, but we don't want the hard work that it takes to get there. Sydney was, there was a few times Sydney was involved in drama. And God bless her drama teacher at Morris Middle School. Because we're in the live, everybody wants to be a celebrity these days. We know this. And, hey, you know how many actors and actresses have gotten their start in high school production? Right? So tons of people want to sign up for plays and do all this. But you know how many people actually want to practice? I'm going to say, Sydney, how many times did you have none of your primary actors and actresses show up for rehearsals? Until the week of the play, people, your leads would not show up because they wanted the end result. They wanted the praise and the adulation and the fun of doing. But the hard work to actually get to that point, they couldn't be bothered. Yeah.
They never will get to that point.
Yeah.
Even if they have the heart.
Yep. Yep. I love this imagery. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 19. The way of the sluggard is blocked with thorns, but the path of the upright is a highway. Now, that can be a little misleading because they say, see, it's easier for some people. Some people get a highway, other people get thorns. Oh, come on now. I was about to say, that's not how it was it? Everybody has thorns on the highway. The question is, are we going to remove them? You're going to get that stuff out of the way, clear. We have a walking trail out here. Actually, don't think it's just the one paved one because it's not. We actually have, there's a path that goes all the way around the church property. There's a path that goes along the side of the walking trail that follows then the parking lot. It'll go down a little more, cut across to where the gym is, then follow and go around the rest of the property. Another one that goes straight off the walking trail, goes back to where that back diamond is. It goes around and follows the property back around. They're worn footpaths. You also see this in the wood. How do footpaths form? How many? One? No. I don't know about you, but one of the neatest things I see is when you have the walking trails made by ants. How much does an ant weigh? But yeah, you can look down to some places, depending on what kind of grass and whatnot it is. You can see the various paths they have because they're working and they're making paths back and forth, all day, every day, until winter hits, back and forth. We all have thorns in our path, but the diligent will get rid of the thorns and make a highway. In Proverbs chapter 16, verse 26, it says, the appetite of laborers work with them. Their hunger drives them on. Say, who's hungry? The appetite of laborers works for them. Their hunger drives them on. Napoleon would say that an army marches on its stomach. Again, we're hungry. We're hungry for something. But the hunger of the diligent will strive them on to more success. They're not satisfied with where they are. They want to become more. God's people should be this way. We shouldn't be satisfied with what we are today. We should want more. This is why, if you haven't read the life of Moses, for example, the life of Moses is a wonderful biblical account to read, because it's a story of a guy, after he got onto his mission, he wanted more. This is the guy who didn't want to go to Egypt, but in the course of his life, asked God if he can see him. I want to see your face. He wasn't satisfied. He wanted more closeness, more interaction, more. And he had a hunger for it. Skip the next one, go to Proverbs chapter 19, verse 15. You get the other side of this. Laziness brings on deep sleep, and the shiftless go hungry. So the diligent are hungry for something, and they're going to go after it, and they're going to get it because they're diligent. But the lazy, they'll just sleep it off. They'll sleep it off, and they'll never get it, and they go hungry. They never get what they desire. Agreed? Disagreed? Thoughts?
Makes me think of what we've been seeing on the news in Los Angeles, San Francisco, some of those places where
The slums.
the just huge numbers of homeless people
Yeah.
putting up tents, and they go to the bathroom out there and the sidewalk in the street. And one of the, I can't remember which city, but one of the leaders in the city said they had offered to a great number of them places to stay. And they don't want to take it. They'd rather just be shiftless and doing their drugs and staying the way they are, rather than have any initiative to get a place to stay and maybe hook them up with a job or something. They don't want to.
There was a lady in New Mexico who used to come by regularly. And she was a homeless person, but she had somehow, she did have a little bit of government assistance. And, I asked her, she asked if we could put her up in a hotel one night. I was like, what are you going to do? It's like, I just want to go into a hotel and just watch TV for like 12 hours. I was like, well, so do I, and we don't have cable, I mean, but there another time I talked to her, and I was like, what can we do? I was like, really, what can you do? What is it that you want? How can we get you off the street? How can we, do you need help finding a job? I mean, what is it that you want to do? And it's like, I can't afford to do something and lose my assistance. And that was I've heard that one actually numerous times. It's only it's a trifle that people get from the government, but they're so scared of losing the trifle that they don't want to go out for more. I mean, it's because they feel more comfortable with that little and doing nothing instead of going out and trying to get more. And again, there's other stuff that goes along with it, but that's just a generalization. But that's that same thing. You go to sleep, and their hunger is going to stay with them. They're going to go hungry. The one in the middle, Proverbs 18, verse 9. One who is slack in his work is brother to one who destroys. Have you ever thought about the connection between laziness and destruction? What happens if we don't fix a wall that's rotting? Neglect. What can neglect do to a structure? What can neglect do to machinery? What can neglect do to anything? What can neglect do to relationship? What can neglect do? Neglect, doing nothing with it, can destroy. That's what it leads to. So that's where this comes from. One who is slack in his work is a brother to one who destroys, because one leads to the other. That's why we have to be diligent. We have to be on it. Proverbs 19:24 is interesting. You get it repeated. Sometimes Proverbs repeat. You get it a repetition in 26:15, slightly different words but same meaning. And check this out. It says, a sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He will not even bring it back to his mouth. Now, if you can't get this imagery, say that you're at your local favorite Mexican food restaurant and you're eating, my wife will rate a Mexican joint by their chips and salsa. Doesn't matter how good the food is. If the chips and salsa stink, we're out of there. But imagine you have a chip, you're going to go dip salsa, and you take your chip and you dip it in the salsa, and you leave it there because you're tired. This is the image. This is what he's saying. You know, the first time I ever read about a sloth, the animal, it was when researchers talked about how they had a sloth in the lab and they put a bowl on its head. The bowl stayed on its head until the researcher took it off. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it interesting how sloths are very popular these days? Yeah. But that's the thing. You know, the sluggard buries his hand in a dish of food, and he's so lazy that he doesn't want to bring it out and feed himself with it. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Proverbs 20, verse 4, sluggards do not plow in season, so at harvest time they look but find nothing. You know, another running theme through this is, again, preparation. You know, we've already had one, but it's like, if you want something later, you got to work now. The long game thinking. You know, if we want to harvest something, we have to plan it. You know, like I said, I've never lived on a farm, but thanks to studying the Bible, I've done a lot of research on farming. Isn't it interesting, if you have worked on a farm, where do those rocks keep coming from? You know, you have to plow up rocks every single year. Where do they come from? We threw them out last year, but there they are again. But you have to go. You have to de-rock a field. You have to plow. You have to sow. You have to weed. You have to hoe. You have to look out for insects. You got to do, you know, you got to do all this stuff constantly until one day you have the harvest. But imagine you do none of that and you wake up one cold fall day thinking you're going to go out and harvest something. Well, you're not, because you haven't planted anything. You know, this is why Jesus talked about how if we're going to be Christians, we're going to be God's people must be those who bear fruit. It's the same principle. Just like a farmer can't expect to go out and harvest nothing if they haven't planted anything, a Christian shouldn't be surprised if they have no fruit if they've never done any sowing. But it's the same mentality. What keeps us from sowing? Laziness. Proverbs 21, verse 5, it says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Dale Dunn, former elder, used to say repeatedly, he who plans to fail, or he who fails to plan, plans to fail. You know, you got to have a plan. There was a church that was doing reconstruction to the church building. And nobody could agree on an architect, so they all said, well, Randy, don't laugh, we'll do it. Okay, now, who's going to be the foreman? We don't need a foreman. They broke up into 2 squads, shifts. One worked, you know, because, you know, it was an area where it was swing shift area, so some people were off in the day, other people were off at night. So you had one shift going in the day, another shift going at night. Well, the shift in the day would go and they would build. Shift at night would come. They didn't like what the day crew did. So they would tear all that out and do it their way. Well, daytime came. The day crew didn't like what the night crew did. So they tore all that stuff out and did what they wanted to do. Well, night came and the night crew came and they didn't like what the day crew did. So they tore all that stuff out and did what they wanted. And this went on until they ran out of money. They had no plan. They had drive, but they had no plan. How important is a plan? A plan of attack. You can go into the army and be a strategist. That's all you do is plan. You know, I mean, that's interesting to me. It's like, that is your job. Your job is to make plans. Because without it, you know, we would fail. But the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Think about all the successful businessmen and women that this country has been able to produce. Do we think they just woke up one morning and just did it? No, plans were made. You know, they put forth, they married their effort, they married their diligence to a plan of attack and go. But haste can lead to poverty because we can get rushing faster than our brain is thinking, and then we will wind up with nothing. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 25, the craving of a sluggard will be the death of him because his hands refuse to work. How does that work?
I'm kind of confused because I didn't know my hands did anything, my mind wouldn't tell it.
But if you refuse to work, again, it's like one we had before. If you refuse to work, what cravings are you fulfilling? And so I'm hungry. Okay, we need food. How do we get food? You go to the store. We don't live, it's not like you go out and pick something unless you have a fruit tree on your property. You go to the store and you pay with it. Okay, what do I pay with? Money. How do you get it? You got to work for it. There's the fly in the buttermilk. But if we're not doing it, then obviously we're not going to be able, it's going to be the death of us because we refuse. That's the idea, the refusal of work. We get the long one in 24 verses 30 to 34. This is like an eyewitness account. This isn't a parable. This is something that was seen. It says, I went past the field of a sluggard, past the vineyard of someone who has no sense. Thorns had come up everywhere, the ground was covered with weeds, and the stone wall was in ruins. I applied my heart to what I observed and learned a lesson from what I saw. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief and scarcity like an armed man. Now, wait a minute. I thought God gave us the Sabbath. He didn't want us to work ourselves to death. And it was good to take some time off every now and then. Oh, you're saying that's not what this is saying?
Not all the time.
Oh. Anybody ever know a hoarder? How does hoarding start?
Collecting stuff.
Yeah, collecting stuff and refusing to throw out something else. That's how it starts. But then what happens? You fast forward several years. You keep collecting, but you're still not getting rid of. Then what do you have? You have a house full of useless things. Have you ever known somebody whose house is falling down around them? How does that start? Not wanting to fix it, time, neglect. When you say, well, it's the inability. Well, we're not talking about people who are handicapped or something happened to them and they're not able. That's a different situation. We're talking about people who are refusing to fix it. And then again, fast forward some years, nothing gets better. You look at this guy. He had a vineyard. It was his job to be a farmer. He had a vineyard, all right? But yet now, the vineyard has, there's thorns in it, the ground's covered in weeds, and the stone wall was in ruin. I don't know ancient Hebrew, but if I did, I would try to say in ancient Hebrew, I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow. Like Shakespeare's Macbeth tells us, you're sounding like the village idiot, just rattling off tomorrow. What does that even mean anymore?
I'll do when I feel it.
And then that's the poverty comes upon you like a thief and scarcity like an armed man. We're robbed of everything that it could have been, and we've done it to ourselves. That's the hard part of it. In Proverbs 26, verse 13, also in 22, verse 13, you get this same thing. A sluggard says, there's a lion in the road, a fierce lion roaming the streets. What? That's it. But what is this now? Or Oklahoma. Yes, Oklahoma, Atoka, Oklahoma. Atoka, Oklahoma was a town in which circuses would go in winter. And that was really cool. But if you've never been, it's really cool because if you go to the local cemetery, they have a circus section. I'm sorry, I said Atoka. It is Hugo. It's Hugo, Oklahoma. I'm sorry. Hugo, Oklahoma. They have a circus section and they're nice, the tombstones. They're very nice. When they would have funerals there. The wagon type hearse would be pulled by elephants, no joke. And they would have wonderful flower arrangements, like miniature versions of what you would see in the Parade of Roses. Animals made out of flowers and whatnot. One time, apparently, while everybody was wintering, a lion got loose in the streets of Hugo, Oklahoma. Now, where a bunch of people might be scared, we're in the American South. All the good old boys got out in the pickup trucks, rifles and shotguns in hand. You got one guy driving and the back end of the pickup filled to capacity, roaming the streets of Hugo looking for a lion. I do believe they got it alive, but I can't remember for sure. But anyway, yeah. But what is this, though? Do what? I know, you better stay inside. Because this is the same state where you'd have to spray paint the word cow on the side of your cow so nobody would shoot them. Hey, it's brown and fuzzy. It must be a deer. This. Well, because it was in a residential neighborhood and it wasn't home. So the slugger says there's a lion in the road, a fierce lion roaming the streets. What is this stuff? Oh, there it is. What's the flimsiest excuse that I can think of not to go outside and work? Go out and pick the back 40. There's a line out there. I don't want to go. You can't make me. That would be child abuse. Excuses are the tools which men make monuments of nothing. We all can think of excuses. We can all think of reasons not to do something. But who are the successful people of life? The successful people in life, might say in an earthly way and also in a spiritual way, are the ones who are able to put excuses aside and progress towards whatever goal it is that we have set. This is fun. Proverbs 26:14. As a door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. That's pretty, isn't it? The lazy person's in bed. It's like, I'm going to get up, and no, I'm not. And that's. Well, what did Benjamin Franklin say? Early to bed, early to rise makes one healthy, wealthy, and wise. Same thing. In Proverbs chapter 26, verse 16, a sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 people who answer discreetly. Now, here's an interesting one. Have you ever met somebody who doesn't do anything, has never done anything, never been successful at anything, but thinks they know everything? I see some eye rolling. Well, did you point at Joanne? I know, I was about to say. Now, here's the thing, though. Okay, I saw tons of people eye rolling. So apparently this does strike home. But how does this happen? They don't do anything. So why do they think they know everything?
A good percentage of all the students I ever had felt that way.
Yeah. I remember growing, if you've lived in a big city area, like a big city, like a Dallas and New York, Houston, Austin, or whatever, you see the guy sitting on the stoop, right? Just sitting on the stoop. They got nothing going. They're just sitting on the stoop, laughing at the people going to work. Oh, those poor kids, look at that. They have to go and slave away the day at work. We're just going to sit here and chill and laugh and have fun and da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, but who getting paid? See, this is the kicker. This is what this is talking about. The sluggard, they think in that situation, they think they're getting away with something. They think they're putting one over on the person who gets up and goes to work or tries to make themselves better or tries to be a blessing to themselves and to society and to God and to everything else. They put forth the work to do something. But they're stuck in their short-term thinking. It's like, hey, you only live once. I don't want to waste my life, doing something that I don't want to do. But they don't have any thinking because guess what? They don't got anything. But you can't.
They have that little bit of government assistance, and they think that's better than
Yep.
a paycheck that this other person's going to be getting.
And you can't tell them anything. That's the sad thing. You can't tell them. We had that proverb last week or the week before when we were talking about anger. Sometimes a person gets to the point where you just can't tell them anything. Sometimes a person has to go through their own hard times before they realize the truth. You know, we can talk about relationship with God. We can talk about life. We can talk about work. We can talk about anything. Sometimes, you know, people have to go through that in order to see. And that's the sad thing of it. Proverbs 28, verse 19. Those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies will have their fill of poverty. Now, we can be tempted to miss the point, and we have to understand, you know, what this is talking about, because there's a lot of people in the world who do make a very good living writing fantasies. But what are we talking about? Is that what we're talking about? No, because they're working. You know, you're successful. I talked about this to Ethan the other day, because Ethan started to do some writing, and you know, and he was looking at some guys. We were in a bookstore, and it's like, you know, those people, those successful authors who are able to write full time, they keep office hours. You know, they're diligent. They're working. You know, because before they got to that point, like Stephen King, for instance, you know, I read a book of his called On Writing, and he talks about life before he was able to do full time writing. He was teaching English in a high school. He was also doing cleanup crew. He grew up in Maine, at a Maine fancy seafood restaurant, throwing, you know, tablecloths and everything that's covered in fish and whatnot. So there's like maggots and all this other stuff in there too, and the laundry and getting all that cleaned up. Then 2-3 hours a night, heading home and writing. You know, chasing at a fan. You know, that was work for them. But obviously, this isn't what we're talking about. What are we talking about? Those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies will have their fill of poverty. Daydreaming. There it is. It's the daydreamers.
Or like the prodigal son. He was chasing his dream.
Yep.
It didn't work out too well for him.
That's right. The ones who are looking for the fabled greener grass on the other side of the fence. You know, the daydreamers, the one who spend life away. Oh, I wish I could do. You know, it's like, okay, that's what you want to do. Go do it. Like J.K. Rowling, who wrote the Harry Potter series, and in which out of that they have made amusement parks and snacks and games. And lady's a billionaire now, I believe. But you know, she started off as a secretary, and she wasn't very good at that because they said she daydreamed too much. Okay, awesome. She converted that into something she could do. That's good. But if we sit around, again, and do nothing, you know, again, put this in a religious sense. You know, if we sit around saying, man, I wish we could just go out and meet more people. Oh, hi. Yeah. But we don't do it, we're wasting time. We are wasting our time. So at the end of this, and talking about we've been talking about laziness, diligence, and all this. What is the secret? What is it that God wanted us to know about this subject out of the book of Proverbs?
Get up and do something.
Why?
Because you won't be any good for him or you.
Yeah. We won't be.
Doing bad physically for your physical well-being to sit and do nothing.
You heard that too, didn't you? Yeah. Thought I heard you scream. What was that? I'm sorry. Yes. Dividing your time, be good stewards at the time we have. Use the time to be a blessing. Blessing to ourselves, yes. Also to God, also to the world around us. You know, anything that we're able to do in life, be a blessing. We can only be a blessing if we're self-controlled in our pursuits and also in our work.
I heard a joke, I think it was Kentucky, that was here about the two frogs in the vat of green.
Oh, yeah, I've heard the story. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, there's two frogs, and they were in this creamery, and they both fell into the vat of cream. So they paddled around for a little while, and one of the frogs said, "We're never going to get out here. I'm just going to give up. See you later. Goodbye." The other frog just kind of kept paddling a while. after a while, he got up and walked out because he turned the cream into butter.
Talking about excuses, I was going to print out the list, but I forgot to. But someone in a newspaper, when we went to see my brother, it was flimsy excuses that parents have sent to the teachers of the school. And the only one I can remember, I'm not trying to gross anybody out, but it's like, my kid has diarrhea and their boots leak. It's like, that's like, my kid is having diarrhea and their boots leak. And it's like, that's bad.
Have you ever heard the song by Keith Lancaster?
Probably not.
Excuses.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, I remember another one that was, I forget what the excuse said, but it was signed Mother. It's like, no, that doesn't work. No. But that's the thing. We don't get to put up with our excuses. So, well, I thank y'all for coming out. Friday, there's a ladies' luncheon at the tea room. Was that 11:30? 11:30. So, ladies, remember that. Paul's been ill for like a week now, right? Yeah.
We had a chest X-ray because she got, she went back to the doctor on Monday and she got him a penicillin shot and another antibiotic. Sent him for an X-ray of his chest.
Okay. It's good to have Elma back. Poor lady, poor soul. She had to go to Hawaii. I know. I'm glad you made it back safe. Were you happy to go to work today? Yeah. So, there's also, Glenda's not here tonight and she's been sick. There's just a lot of sickness going around in the valley right now.
What kind of?
She's kind of had like chest or like summer cold type stuff, but also lack of energy and coughing, sneezing, all that sort of jazz. So, yeah. Your husband's the same? Yeah. So just a lot of sickness going on. So, is there anything else that we need to announce tonight? Any other prayer requests or anything? La Pizza's supposedly getting out today. I asked them to let me know if they got out. I haven't heard anything, but she was waiting to be released. So she's supposed to be.
Someone on Facebook, she was waiting, then later she put, I'm getting to leave. I'm getting released or something.
Okay, so hopefully she's
I
out.
think she's out. She should be out.
Okay. Good. Yeah. But she said, we saw her, we went up and saw her yesterday, and she says after she had her stent put in, pain was gone. Yeah, just gone. So, yeah. So that's good. So if there's nothing else that we need to announce, let's go ahead and have a closing prayer. Again, I thank you all for coming out. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful day that you bless us with, and we thank you for this day that you have given us. We thank you for allowing us to be here tonight and that we may learn more. And we pray that we may be more diligent in our pursuits and more diligent in our work, especially in our work in which we want to do for you. We pray that you guide us in your ways. In Jesus' name, amen.